whether the team is performing clean or unsightly. We'll cover it all here on Washington Football Nightly. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So Washington avoids 0-2 with a massive victory over the New York Football Giants. We've talked about this game. We're going to talk about it some more. We're going to take a look at the keys to the game and see how many of them did they get done, and talk about some of the things that we need to clean up. I talked about directly after the game having an opportunity to really address some of the things that are frustrating right now with this football team despite getting the win. I am very confident that they will clean up a lot of these issues that we've seen early on. Teams are doing a good job when you go back and take a closer look of really trying to neutralize our pass rush. No excuses. There are times where guys get one-on-one rushes and simply don't get it done. But we will talk about all of those things here in this breakdown. So how did Washington avoid 0-2 and get to 1-1? Let's talk about that right now as we take a look at the keys to the game. So the first thing we want to look at is the Washington offense versus the defense. And you could argue that the offense was the biggest reason why we are sitting at 1-1 right now and not lamenting another loss to the Giants and sitting at the bottom of the NFC East at 0-2. Protect up front was the first thing that I said they had to do. The Giants are not a great pass rush team. They weren't last year. They're not this year. They don't get pressure on the quarterback. They don't like to blitz. They love to play coverage. They like to keep everything in front of them. And I said we should have time up front. One of the more disappointing aspects of week one was the pressure that we saw our quarterbacks be under, more specifically Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's how he got injured. He got dumped on his hip. And so we wanted to see them step up and protect better, and they did that. Only one sack on the game, and it was on the very first possession. And as Ron said, Taylor Heinicke essentially ran into that sack, and I totally agree with him. So I thought the offensive line was exceptional, and I thought they actually ran the football very well. So I thought the offensive line was outstanding in this football game, really giving Taylor Heinicke all the time that he needed to go through his progressions and find his receivers, which he did time and time again throughout the football game. We threw it 46 times in this game, and that's not counting the snaps that didn't count because of penalties. So there were quite a few dropbacks in this game, and to only give up one sack and really have that sack be on the quarterback, I think the offensive line did an admirable job and deserve credit for what they did. So we get a check mark there for protect up front. Next key to the game, get playmakers involved early and often. One of our big frustrations with week one versus the Chargers was Terry didn't have a target nor a reception until the second half of the football game, which is it's asinine. It can't happen. It just can't. He's your best receiver, and it's not close. He's one of the better receivers in the league. He has to touch it early and often. I was fuming about J.D. McKissick's lack of appearance essentially in the week one loss and how he was essentially on a milk carton. And there's no excuse for that. He's too big of a part of this offense, and he's too much of a weapon for him not to be more utilized. Well, we saw that rectified in week number 2. Terry with 14 targets, 11 catches, a career high 11 catches. J.D. McKissick, a massive part of this win, 5 catches in the game for him, including a 46-yarder and also a touchdown run right before the end of the first half. So J.D. McKissick's fingerprints are all over this victory. And then you spread it around to other guys. I think 6 different receivers caught passes in this football game, including, one of the biggest catches of the game, Ricky Seals-Jones, who hadn't had a catch nor a target until the opportunity he was given by Taylor Heinicke. So spread the football around, get playmakers involved. Terry, J.D. McKissick, Antonio Gibson, Logan Thomas had 5 or 6 grabs. These are your playmakers. Get them involved. De'Ami Brown had a couple of grabs. They did that. Good job of doing that. So they get a check mark there as well. Move the launch point. This is something I didn't think they did a great job of necessarily. I didn't see a lot of boots. Hell, Taylor Heinicke wasn't really under center for that matter very often. I didn't think they changed the launch point, but they didn't need to. The Giants didn't get any pressure. They knew where they could find him. They just couldn't get there. They knew the address of where to find number 4. They just couldn't get there. And again, credit the offensive line for that. I want to see them against a more active front in Buffalo this upcoming week. I want to see them move the launch point, more bootlegs, more sprint outs, things that move the launch point so they don't always know where they can find Taylor Heinicke. They didn't have to do that in week number 2 because the Giants' pass rush was so stagnant. But I think moving forward against more active fronts, and we will see much better fronts moving forward, you're going to have to find ways to move the launch point, or else it could be a really frustrating evening for Taylor Heinicke. So that's not something they did in this game. They didn't have to do it. I would have preferred to see them do that, put that on tape, but that's not something they did in this particular game. I'm not going to really harp on it too much or kill them for it because, again, it wasn't a necessity. The Giants weren't getting home, but I still want to see them move Heinicke, use his athleticism, and get him outside of the pocket. So they get an incomplete for that one. Not a fail, but just an incomplete. Establish Gibby and take shots. I thought that they established Gibby. Could they have run him more? Absolutely. The pass game was working, and we were constantly, playing from behind in this game. As a matter of fact, I don't think we actually took the lead in this game until the fourth quarter when we had the 27-26 lead. I think we had actually been playing from behind the entire game. The Giants jumped out on top of us, and I don't think we ever fully caught up. So establishing the run, we never had to go away from the run. We weren't being blown out in this game, but the pass was what was working. Not to say that the run wasn't. I mean, Gibby at one point was averaging up over 5 yards a carry. So the run was working, but the pass was working, and it was getting us down the field faster with chunk plays being had between Terry and J.D. McKissick and Logan Thomas. There were chunk plays being made, so they wanted to continue to take advantage of those chunk play opportunities. So I thought they established Gibby enough. Could they have run it more? Sure. I think we all can agree they could have given it to him more, but I didn't have a problem with them not giving Gibby, 18 or 20 carries. I think he ultimately left this game with 12 or 13 carries. I didn't have a problem with him not getting the 18 carries or so. I thought there were opportunities in this game for him to have some runs, and we talked about situational awareness. I watched it again. I still feel the same way that I did coming away from the game initially, that there were some spots where I thought we were a little too pass happy, could have slowed things down a bit, given Taylor an opportunity to breathe, and maybe tried to pierce the Giants in the run game a little bit more. But I'm not complaining. If it's not broken, don't fix it. The pass game was highly successful. I thought there were some times we put ourselves in some unnecessary third and longs because we were too aggressive on first and second down. But I like aggressiveness on first down, so I don't like to contradict myself. I like taking shots. I like going for 7 to 10 to 12 on first down to put yourself in a more advantageous second down, or to convert a first down on first down, which Scott Turner tried to do a lot in this football game. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. I thought they established Gibby enough, and they took some shots down the field. You take what the defense is giving you. I know a lot of us don't like to hear that. I only really want to hear take what the defense gives you when it is regarding trying to be aggressive, pushing the football down the field. You can't push the football down the field when there are two high safeties, okay? Now, you may be able to get some opportunities over the middle of the football field if you get those two split high safeties, but as far as trying to take those deep shots with safeties 30 yards back, that doesn't make any sense. You're throwing into a potential turnover. So you want to take what the defense is giving you. They're giving you some easy opportunities underneath. You take that. So I don't think they pushed the ball down the field. The Giants were extremely soft, as we all know, in this game. That's how we got so many easy completions to Terry and Logan Thomas and JD. They were extremely soft underneath. So they weren't allowing us to really push it down the field vertically. So the shot opportunities weren't really there, which is fine. We did have a couple of opportunities. I think Heinicke missed an opportunity to DeAndre Carter in the first quarter that could have resulted in a touchdown if he hits him in stride right over the middle of the football field. But outside of that, there weren't a ton of opportunities down the field. He took some shots, and De'Ami Brown was covered. But at the end of the day, he took a couple of opportunities to Terry, hit one, on a deep comeback. He had another route. Obviously, Ricky Seals-Jones in the end zone was a chunk play for a touchdown. The J.D. McKissick play was a nice chunk play down the sideline, perfectly thrown football. So there were opportunities. They took some shots just to stretch the defense. I thought they did that. I'm going to give them a check mark there. And then finally, protect the Duke. It almost, just like the week prior, it almost came back to bite us. We took care of the football for about 57 minutes, and then we found a way to try and bungle this thing with the turnover by Heinicke, throwing the interception. Great play by James Bradbury. Got to give him credit, but that was a poor read by Taylor Heinicke, one that I'm pretty sure he wanted back the minute he let it go. That said, we were able to overcome it. The defense rose to the occasion, got the stop, got the ball back to the offense, and the rest is history. But you got to protect the Duke. And our 2 turnovers, we've only turned the ball over twice this season, 1 in each game. They have been some of the most unopportune times for turnovers. And again, there's never a good time for a turnover, but there are some times where turnovers are harmless. You know, you fumble the football right around midfield with no time left in the first half. Who gives a shit? Okay. It goes out of bounds or a team falls on it. Like when Antonio Gibson fumbled against the Browns last year, it was right before halftime. There was no time left on the clock. It didn't matter. It was irrelevant. But still, you don't want to turn the football over ever. But we've turned it over in the worst of times this season. Obviously, the Antonio Gibson fumble damn near right by our end zone, which gave the Chargers the opportunity to score the game-winning touchdown. And then, obviously, the Taylor Heinicke interception with a chance to milk the clock and win the game on offense. That almost turned disastrous for us, but we were able to overcome. So I can't give them the check mark because we didn't win the turnover battle. We did not generate a turnover from the Giants, yet we turned it over once. So we did not protect the Duke. We did not take care of the football, even though we did for 57 minutes. You have to do it for all 60, so they can't get a check mark there. So out of the 5, they got 3. You know how I feel. You get 3 or 2.5 is what I say out of 5. And I feel good about our chances. You really would like to get somewhere in the 3.5 neighborhood. We got 3 out of 5. I can't really be that upset. Maybe I should give us a half for protecting the Duke. I'm not going to give it. You almost lost the game with that. 3 out of 5 for the offense. Not bad. Let's turn it over to the defensive side of the football. So take away Giants' run game. Neutralize Barkley was the first key to the game defensively for Washington. And essentially they did that. There was really not a lot of space or run room for Saquon Barkley. He obviously did have the 41-yard run. But if you take that away, Barkley was pretty much ineffective and non-existent in the game. There were a couple of hits, 5, 6, 7-yard carries, but they were few and far between. For the most part, he was bottled up in this ball game. And when we needed to stop the run, more importantly, we did. When they were trying to ice the clock, get a first down, and kick a walk-off field goal, the defense, again, rose to the occasion, got the stops, forced the 3rd and long, and got the incompletion, and were able to force a field goal attempt. So I thought they did a good enough job of taking away the Giants' run game, taking away Saquon Barkley, and not allowing him to be a crutch for Daniel Jones. It really didn't matter. Jones was fantastic in this game. We'll get to that in a second. But he wasn't fantastic because he had the balance of a run game that was really hurting Washington with Saquon Barkley. They did have a run game, though, and it was actually with Daniel Jones, which takes us to the next key to the game. So we get a check there. They took away the run game with Saquon Barkley. They didn't take away the run game with Daniel Jones, which takes us to our next key to the game. Eliminate big play opportunities. They did not do this effectively enough. You give up the Darius Slayton touchdown. William Jackson III gets beat one-on-one down the sideline. Perfectly placed ball by Daniel Jones. Good catch by Slayton. You have the miscommunication with Landon Collins, who definitely, I went back and watched, he's definitely in the wrong. It's no doubt about it. Landon Collins sucked up on a deep dig. Miscommunication. William Jackson is expecting inside help from the safety. Collins is nowhere to be found, and that's how Slayton gets so wide open. And so that is a big-time issue there. They got to get that stuff cleaned up. And again, I think with more reps with one another, those things will get cleaned up. But that's just simply a guy having poor eye discipline. His eyes are in the wrong place, and not doing his job and trying to make a play. Do your job, and everything else will take care of itself. So that was a big play opportunity that the Giants missed on, but that not because of anything we did. That was simply an error on their part, not taking full advantage of a mistake on our part. And then Daniel Jones using his legs. He had the big run that should have been a touchdown. You could argue that wasn't really holding, whatever the case may be. It was holding if you ask me. I mean, you saw William Jackson III's jersey after the play. It looked like the dude was trying to rip it off. However, it was a ticky-tack call. Had that been us, I'd have been pissed off. Like, what are you doing? Who throws that flag right there? So whatever the case may be, that was a big-ass run for a touchdown. They called it back towards the end of the run, but it set up a scoring opportunity that they ultimately got a field goal out of. Too many big plays by this Giants offense. Too many runs with Daniel Jones and his legs. The man had 9 carries for 95 yards on the ground, and they were chunks. It was 12, it was 15, it was 20, it was 40. It was too damn much. And then you give up big chunk plays. I mean, every first down, it seemed like the first play, 16, 22, 17. They were just getting chunks on first down where the Giants. They weren't great on third down, but they didn't have to be because they were so successful on first and second down that they didn't find themselves in third downs until they got into the red zone or got towards scoring position. And then if they failed, they could still come away with a field goal. So really frustrating that we didn't eliminate big play opportunities. Definitely don't get a check mark there. We failed to eliminate big play opportunities in this game, and it almost cost us big time. Get off the field on third downs. Remember, this was a point of emphasis coming off of one of the worst weeks we've seen from this defense on third down since probably 2016 when we were just miserable. One of the worst teams in NFL history on third downs. Well, we bounced back in a major way. Giants were 4 of 12 on third downs in the ball game. I believe 4 of 12, maybe 4 of 13. I know Washington was 4 of 12 or 13, and whatever they weren't, the Giants were. So if Washington was 4 of 12, the Giants were 4 of 13. If Washington was 4 of 13, the Giants were 4 of 12. Either way, neither team was all that great on third downs. And if you're looking at it from a defensive standpoint, that's the way it should be. That's what this defense is supposed to be able to do, get off the field on third downs. They were able to do that a little bit more successfully in the first half, I believe, after a slow start. Thought they were able to get off the field, forced the Giants to have to punt, had some big sacks, pressure on Daniel Jones. In the second half, they couldn't get off the field at all, but what they ended up doing was they ended up buckling down in the red zone and forcing the Giants to settle for field goals instead of scoring touchdowns, and ultimately that produced the difference in the game. The Giants come away with a touchdown or two, really just one touchdown. Obviously, we win by 1 point. They scored a touchdown on one of those drives that resulted in a field goal. They kicked 5 field goals in this game. Now, some of them weren't very close. They had a 54-yarder and I think a 52-yarder. So those obviously weren't, in the red zone, but they had some other ones where, they were pretty close chip shot field goals that you'd like to come away with touchdowns with, and they weren't able to do it. So, give credit to the defense for bouncing back after a horrendous start to the season on third down. They were much better in this football game against the Giants. Get to Daniel Jones and force turnovers was the next key to the game. Obviously, we did not get this done and weren't even close. Daniel Jones, I thought, was harassed in the first half. Jonathan Allen with 2 sacks, both in the first half. I thought we got to him. Montez Sweat sacked him in the first half as well. Thought we hit him in the first half. I thought the Chase Young roughing the passer penalty was bogus, but what are you going to do? We got the benefit of that same whistle the week prior with Joey Bosa picking up a couple of what I thought were really ticky-tack, soft personal foul, roughing the passer penalty. So it goes both ways. At the end of the day, I thought we had pressure in the first half. I thought the pressure was non-existent in the second half, and Daniel Jones got really comfortable and into a rhythm because there was no pressure, because he could build a house and go through his progressions without the fear of getting hit. And so he didn't have to speed things up, so he didn't make any ill-advised throws. He didn't have to hold on to the ball a little bit longer because the coverage was good or because a guy was coming and he couldn't get rid of it fast enough, so now he has to, get out of dodge. There was none of that. He was comfortable and able to go through his progressions and make the right decision. And a lot of times he didn't have to go past his second read. Guys were wide open and he was finding them time and time again. He was way too comfortable in this game, especially in the second half. We didn't generate any turnovers, weren't even close. I think the closest we came to forcing a turnover was Cole Holcomb getting his hands on a ball over the middle of the football field, and Cole wasn't even close to picking that thing off. When you watch the replay of that, he got one hand on the ball, and it wasn't in a trying to catch it motion. It was more of a trying to knock it down motion. So we did not come close to picking Daniel Jones off in this ball game. He didn't come close really to making any mistakes. We didn't hit him enough. He didn't have any ball security issues because we didn't apply enough pressure. He was way too comfortable in this game. And, by most people's accounts and standards, probably one of his better performances of his career. I still go back to his performance against us back in 2019 when he shredded us with 5 touchdown passes, including the touchdown in overtime to beat us. I think that's his best performance so far as a pro, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we didn't get any pressure on Daniel Jones in the second half. We didn't get to him nearly enough. We didn't create any turnover opportunities. That's frustrating when you got a guy like Daniel Jones who is prone to turning the football over. For him to do the things that he did, the man accounted for well over 300 yards by himself, over 200 yards, probably over 250, 60 yards passing, and another 95 on the ground. It's just too much production for Daniel Jones without any duress. That was very disappointing, and so absolutely no check mark there for the defense. And then finally, win the turnover battle and special teams. Hard to say that we won special teams, but hard to say that we didn't. Look, the Giants were 5 of 5 in the field goal department. I thought both teams punted the football very effectively. I thought that, we went 3 for 3, but we did miss one, but we got a mulligan. And so when you look at the stat sheet, Dustin Hopkins 3 for 3. Graham Gano went 5 for 5 for the Giants. I thought our special teams coverage was pretty much good all evening long. No big returns, nothing egregious, no really bad penalties like we had in week 1. A lot of touchbacks for both teams. So I think special teams was somewhat of a wash, which is fine. I don't want our guys making any mistakes, and we didn't make any mistakes that cost us. We almost did with the miss, but that one got wiped from the books. I guess you could say that the Giants had the most costly penalty of the game on special teams with Dexter Lawrence jumping offside. So I would, in effect, give us the nod on special teams because we didn't commit any penalties like that, and they did. So I'd say that, we won special teams. We didn't win the turnover battle, so you get a half there. Didn't create or generate any turnovers, which is very frustrating. But at the end of the day, you did enough. You got stops when stops needed to be had. You forced the Giants to kick 5 field goals and didn't allow them in the end zone a ton. And again, it wasn't pretty, but it was gritty, and it was most importantly a dub, and you'll take them any way you can get them. And so on the defensive side of the football, you come away with, I think, 2.5. We neutralized Barkley. You got off the field on third downs, and you won special teams. So 2.5. You couple that with the 3 from the offensive side, and that's 5.5 out of 10. You'd like that number to be somewhere up around 6, 6.5, 7. You'll take the 5.5 with a win, but we've got to be better, especially on the defensive side of the football, if we want to beat better teams in the league. And we've got better teams coming up over the next month and a half. So we're going to have to be better, but we'll take the win, move forward, and hopefully make the necessary adjustments and corrections and be more competitive on the defensive side of the football. So let's get to in other news, where I want to first talk about Taylor Heinicke, the legend of Heinicke. It grows. So we saw Taylor Heinicke take us down the field. He got his not only his first win of his career, but his first comeback drive of his career as well. So he killed 2 birds with 1 stone, because he gets credit for a come-from-behind victory and a comeback drive. So when we start looking at, what Taylor Heinicke, how many game-winning drives did he have? Now he's got 1 under his belt, and that's part of that legend growing. But he said after the game, if you watch the interview with NFL Network, when he was asked, hey, do you think you've done enough to be the quarterback for the remainder of the season for this football team? And he's like, yeah, I feel like I'm ready to lead this team. I feel like I've done enough, and I'm ready to take the reins and be the guy, essentially, is what he said. Very confidently, nothing smug about it, no disrespect to Ryan Fitzpatrick, but he's like, hey, it's my time. I'm ready. I agree. I think most of you out there agree as well. He's got to stay healthy. Knock on some wood here. But at the end of the day, it's one game. And Rivera said after the game, one day at a time, one game at a time. That's how we're going to approach this thing, because that could be the peak of Taylor Heinicke right there, what we just got. And it just goes all downhill from there. I don't see that happening. You guys know how I feel about him. But that was a great opening act for Taylor Heinicke for this season. Now let's see how he grows with that and builds upon that first performance. Big game against Buffalo on the road. First time Washington is going to pack their things and hit the road jack this season. Let's see what they're able to do against a Buffalo team that bounced back. We'll talk about them here in a second. But I want to get to some injury things from us in that game. For the second week in a row, going to go ahead and knock on some wood again. Relatively healthy, man. Not a lot of issues with injuries. Can't wait to see Wednesday's injury report. But I'd like to think with the extra days off and the way we came out of the game that the only guy that I'm concerned about, and we'll see what happens, is Matt Ioannidis, who was down for a brief period in the game, left, ultimately came back, did not look as explosive and like himself. So that could be something that lingers, and, with your adrenaline flowing, you're able to come back and play, but then it sits and settles, and all of a sudden you can barely move it, and it's stiffened up on you. We'll see what happens with him. Be anxious to see what he's listed as, if he's even listed on the injury report, which I think he will be. And then Antonio Gibson, did he come out of this game any worse for wear? Again, he came in with the shoulder. He was fine. He practiced all week. Did that shoulder get dinged and nicked anymore? Did he, was he able to come out of it not feeling any more, worse for the wear, as I mentioned? And then obviously the extra days off is going to help him be able to recuperate. So I want to see how those two guys, but outside of that, I think we pretty much came out of this thing relatively healthy, which is something that we should be all excited about. And then you take a look at our upcoming opponent in the Buffalo Bills. We're going to go ahead and continue to savor this one for one more day. And then Wednesday, you got to start preparing for the Bills, turn our attention to the week of practice, and start really honing in on trying to get our second win in a row over a dangerous and explosive Bills team who just went to Miami, took their frustrations out on their AFC East counterpart, destroying them in Miami 35-0. The big story here, they injured Tua Tagovailoa. They hit him early and often. They hit Jacoby Brissett a ton. They first forced 3 turnovers. They held the Dolphins to 0 of 5 in the red zone. They were dominant. They held the Dolphins to less than 240 yards of offense in this game. They stifled, stymied, and destroyed them. And then to make matters worse, offensively, they were able to cash in, put points up on the scoreboard, and run away with that game 35-0. So I remember watching that game early on thinking, I'm not afraid of these Bills, man. This is not uber impressive. But in the second half, they smelt blood in the water. They knew that Jacoby Brissett wasn't capable of beating them, and they really turned it up, and it got ugly. It got ugly fast, and the thing that is worrisome is they hit the Dolphins quarterbacks. Obviously, Tua got dumped on his rib and ended up leaving the game, and they hit the Dolphins quarterbacks quite a bit, which is something that we didn't have to worry about last week with the Giants, but this week we will have to worry about it with a much more aggressive front in Buffalo. We're going to have to do a better job of protecting than we did in week 1 against another aggressive front in the Chargers. So that's something to keep in mind, but they just put up 35 and blanked the Dolphins, and they're really, really looking to start building some momentum. They're not happy with the way their first home game went. Now we're going to Buffalo for their second home game. We got to be careful. This is a dangerous Buffalo Bills football team. Now, I will say the Bills turned it over twice in that game, and I thought at times they were very, very sloppy. But at the end of the day, 35-0 is 35-0, and they're on the board. They're 1-1. Somebody's going to get to 2-1 after that game, and we'll talk about what we need to do to make sure that it's us and not them later on in the week. And then finally, wanted to talk about the NFC East. So going into the week, only one team had a win in the left-hand column, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles. Everyone else's tally was in the right-hand column. And so all the Eagles fans were coming out in droves last week talking about Jalen Hurts and how good the Eagles looked and this, that, and the third. And they did look good. And I said, and I kept repeating this, come talk to me after you play the 49ers. Come talk to me after you play the Cowboys. Come talk to me after you play the Chiefs. These are your next three games. If you're sitting pretty there at 4-0, 3-1, or hell, even 2-2 after those first four games, we may have something to discuss. But really, at the end of the day, I don't see them winning any of these next three games, including the one that they just lost to the San Francisco 49ers. They were dreadful on offense in that football game. At one point, it looked like they were only going to score 3 points. I think their coach, Nick Sirianni, I thought he was a little bit over-aggressive, passing on an opportunity to kick a field goal when they were down 7-3. Instead, going for it and being denied. Should have taken the points. Doesn't matter. They weren't good enough on offense. Their defense gave them a chance in that ball game. Jalen Hurts was awful at times, but he's also really good at times. At the end of the day, he wasn't good enough. And neither was that Eagles offense. And the defense gave them every opportunity to win that football game. Unfortunately, not for us, but for them, their offense was not good enough. And we'll take it. I expect Dallas to dispose of them and dispatch of them in week number 3 on Monday night in Dallas, as that'll be the Cowboys' home opener for the season. That should be a fantastic ball game. Speaking of the Cowboys, they went on the road and did what we couldn't do a week ago, and that was take care of the Los Angeles Chargers. That was the sloppiest game of week 2 to this point. I think both teams might have had 10 penalties or more in that game. So many mistakes. Literally, neither team wanted to win. Somebody had to, and that somebody ultimately ended up being the Dallas Cowboys. The Chargers definitely had every opportunity to win that game, similar to the way the Giants had every opportunity to beat us and they didn't. Cowboys fans said, oh man, they gave you every opportunity. Well, the Chargers had every opportunity and they didn't take advantage. So it's the same thing. Cowboys get it done though, and that's all that matters. That's all that is important, is that you find a way to get it done, and the Cowboys did exactly that. Winning 20-17 over the Chargers, getting their first win of the season. So now the Eagles, Cowboys, and yours truly are all 1-1, with the Washington football team being at the top of that 1-1 pecking order, because we're not only 1-0 in the conference, we're 1-0 in the division, which no one else can lay claim to. Now, again, Eagles, Cowboys will play each other in the division on Monday Night Football in week 3, so someone will get their first victory in the division of the season there. So that'll be a big game. All eyes will be on that contest in week number 3. But right now, as it stands, the entire division stands for the Giants, 1-1. And so we'll see how week 2 go, or the rest of week 2 shapes out. I mean, the division is already settled. Everyone's played in the division, and we'll see how week 3 goes. Someone's going to be 2-1 after. I was hoping the Cowboys lost, and that the winner of that game could potentially be 1-2, and the loser could be 1-2 as well. Someone's going to be 2-1 after that game. So if we don't take care of Buffalo, more likely than not, I mean, that game could ultimately end in a tie. Highly unlikely, but it could. Someone's going to end up at 2-1, and if we don't take care of business, we won't be in first place. But that's okay. That's fine by me. I'm just glad that we took care of business, and I tell you guys this all the time. Yeah, you got to keep an eye on the other teams in the division. You keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. So, yeah, I need to know what the hell they're doing. But I'm more concerned with what we're doing. We took care of business in week number 2 like we were supposed to. And now we've given ourselves an opportunity to maybe put together a little bit of a win streak here. We'll see what we are capable of doing. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the Monday installment of Washington Football Nightly. Week 3 is essentially upon us now, as we'll start to turn our attention to the Buffalo Bills. That win in week 2 was fantastic. There was this cloud nine highness that came with that win. Just feeling like, man, we did something big. And Ron Rivera said after this game that this felt like last year's team, from the point of being resilient. And that was a resilient win because, again, we never led in that game until, literally 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. We trailed that entire game. And every time we scored, the Giants scored and answered. I think I might be wrong. I think we actually took the lead on the Giants at halftime with the J.D. McKissick touchdown. I'm trying to think. I think we were actually up at one point 14-10. Yeah. So I misspoke earlier when I said we did not have the lead until the fourth quarter. I'm playing the game back in my mind. We were down 10-7. We were down 10-7. Then we got the J.D. McKissick touchdown right before the half, took the lead 14-10 into the halftime break. And then the Giants systematically broke that lead down, kicked a field goal. Then I think they scored a touchdown after that, took the lead 20-14. Then we kicked a field goal, made it 20-17. And they kicked a field goal, made it 26-17. And we kicked a field goal to make it 26-20. And then we scored the touchdown, and we finally got the defensive stop. And then we got the touchdown, and then took the lead 27-26. Giants go back down, get the touchdown, the field goal to take the lead after the interception was thrown to give them the lead 29-27. And then we got the field goal late. So I misspoke. We did have a lead at halftime into the third quarter. It was short-lived. I think the Giants' first 2 possessions resulted in a field goal and touchdown. They took the lead and didn't relinquish it until 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. But that said, it was a very resilient game. There were so many opportunities for the Giants to run away and hide. And every time they scored, we responded with the score. Even if it was only a field goal, we just kept fighting and scratching and clawing until we finally broke through with the 2-play touchdown drive to give us the lead, finally scoring a touchdown after settling for 2 field goals in the second half to that point. So it was great to score 30 finally, get that monkey off our back, get the win in dramatic fashion, kill a divisional opponent, really put the Giants down in the dumps at 0-2, see if they can bounce back. The Falcons looked a lot better in week number 2 against the Buccaneers, so maybe that's no longer a pushover in week 3 for the Giants. Maybe they lose that game as well. We'll see. At the end of the day, I'm more concerned with what we're doing, less concerned with what they are doing. But it's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Remember, I am a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington football team. I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode of Washington Football Nightly. Until then, you guys, take care.
Here comes the diesel. Here comes the diesel. There's the snap, hand to Riggins. Good hold. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20.